Today, the word cliché conveys a negative signal to the audience. While not necessarily that, clichés mean ideas that have been overused, but that doesn't always mean they're bad. Clichés, because they are repeated many times, make it easy for the player to see what will happen next. And while this is true for many horror genres, in many others they can even help creators because twisting a stereotypical idea makes the player's expectations more challenging. When confronted with a stereotypical idea, we spontaneously prepare ourselves psychologically for what we think is going to happen. But if here the creators bring the idea to a unique end, the same underlying psychological mechanism we have used against us, and adds a surprise add to our sense of fear. There are some ideas that may have started out as a cliché at first, but creators will create a completely new process by expanding it. Sometimes creators can use clichés to implement their own final idea, which not only challenges our understanding of the stereotype, but also motivates them to create a great experience. If I want to give a general example of stereotypes outside of fear, I can point to the first version of The Last of Us. The story or even the overall design of the world of this work has put a cliché at its core, which we see again and again in the past and even today. But the creators with twists, sound, unique elements of space, and many other elements turn this cliché into a narrative and experience that will never be forgotten. So there are many elements based on creativity that can make a stereotype work or be annoying. Now that we've talked a little bit about the cliché, let's move on to using cliché in stage design and space for horror genres. In the design of stages, stereotypes are very dependent on how other elements of the game work, including characters, enemies, and sometimes even storytelling, so that each of these items can contribute to the higher efficiency of a cliché in the field of stage design. Again, let's give an example to better understand. The first part of the village is both RE4. One of the common stereotypes in the design of the stages of the game is that the creators poured a large number of enemies over the player and asked him to survive according to the characteristics of the game during this conflict. And while there are many games that did this, but why among the many scenarios of implementing this stereotype, RE4 has been able to perform excellently, and not only the dose of stress keeping it up, but also using the player's brain. The answer is the flexibility of gameplay and the ability to get help from the game environment. During this part of the game, unlike some other works that focus solely on one of the two elements of the fight or flight equation, this game allows you to constantly move between these two categories. Create your own strategies according to the environment, facilities, and trial and error, and the reason is the design of the layer of the game environment, as well as the possibility of much interaction with it. There are other environmental stereotypes, such as blood splashed on the wall, blood trails on the floor, or lights that are constantly turned on and off. But are they really bad stereotypes? Again, it has to do with other elements that interact with this environment. For example, a title like Fear beautifully uses this stereotype to reinforce the element of his psychological fear against the player. And here, the creators does exactly the same twist trick that challenges the player's expectations and makes him mentally anxious and uncertain that he never knows what he is going to face. And this is a double psychological conflict for the player. He is not necessarily related to the events of the game and is more of an inner struggle. This inner struggle makes him feel the weight of the playing environment more on a psychological level, because his mental defense is now busy finding the next possibility and preparing the brain to face it. So it can be said that stereotypes are a must for horror games and even the whole gaming industry, and sometimes even for creators to act as stimuli that help them take a step towards their ultimate goal of creating a great fear experience. But these stereotypes can be equally destructive and annoying, and officially paralyze the fear of the game. Developers need to use them in an efficient way and with the help of innovation.